In life, three things are guaranteed: death, taxes, and a ban list that drops at a random date that will hit your favorite tax. My name is Shinakami, and today I'm making my ban list predictions for the January ban list. So, to kind of set the mood, this will be the ban list going into the return of the first physical events. The YCS in America, I forgot the name, Pasadena, it's a really weird name, I've never heard this place before, the YCS. And there's also one in Utrecht in the Netherlands. So we got, after the ban list, remotely a few weeks after new events. Big events, YCS's, for the first time since, well, the start of the pandemic. So these are going to be a huge deal, a big deal. I expect the ban list to drop before the new year. It will go into effect in January, but I expect Konami to give people a few weeks to prepare. So with those things in mind, I kind of looked at what cards make sense from a balancing purpose, but also from like a money purpose, you know, Konami is a company after all. I also want to give a shout out to the following website. Note that I did not sponsor me, I just simply used them. Yu-Gi-Oh! Scope. It allows you to look at data over a certain format. In this case I looked over the October 2021 format for the last 7 days. And yeah, you can basically see what cards you play, what their win rates are, which decks you play. And also based on hits on that. It's something I hope Konami will also do when they have Master Duels. Look at data and base reprints. You know, if an archetype suddenly sees plays and the cards are expensive because they're out of print, reprint them. And ban lists based on what cards are winning a lot. Yeah, I think it could be nice. So, for this video I got 6 cards on my ban list that I want to see banned, 4 cards on my limit list, 4 cards on my semi-limit list, which I know is a lot for some people, and 6 cards I want to see go unlimited. Quite some changes, and I expect about 3 or 4 to actually happen in total. That's a realistic prediction. Now I know these are always controversial, please keep it civilized in the comments. It's fine to disagree, but don't be a dick about it. So, starting off, the first ban I could see happen is Red Eyes Fusion. It actually makes a lot of sense and force people to get the Destiny Hero engine with Fusion Destiny, get their Destroy Phoenix Enforcers. And in general, Destroy Phoenix Enforcer is an annoying card, but it's not as annoying as Dragoon. A lot of people, I'd rather face Destroy Phoenix for example, and I can't see them straight up hitting the Predator Plant because then the Destiny Hero Fusion engine is less usable. I also don't expect them to hit Dragoon because Dark Magician is something they really cash in on, you know. One thing we all complain about is DM support, so it would be very weird for them to straight up ban Dragoon. Banning Dragoon would mean they hit Dark Magician. I just don't see them do that. Without Red Eyes Fusion, Dark Magician can still Fusion Summon Dragoon. And I don't think they care much about Red Eyes players. Sorry, you'll probably have to take the L. The next ban I could see happen is Cult by the Grave. It's already limited, which for a card like this is usually a good warning sign that it might get banned soon. Realistically, it's an unhealthy card for the game. I'm not a fan of hand traps myself, but Cult by the Grave just adds more RNG to a game that already has a bit too much RNG at times. And this is one of those cards that should be at 3 or 0. I don't think it should be at 1. It's too much of a power card. I think Cult by the Grave is strong even without countering hand trap, just the ability to remove a card from your opponent's grave. And then until the end of the next turn negate its effects, I think it's a bit too much. The spell is too powerful and I don't think it should be in the game. That's why I think Cult by the Grave might get banned. Next card, kind of a community demand, is Imperial Order. Now, Floodgates, I'm not against Floodgates. However, I'm against floodgates that easily protect themselves. The most common way to out floodgates is spell cards. You know, Lightning Storm, Space Typhoon, Twin Twister, that kind of stuff. And you can't use those against Imperial Order. It locks out one of the 2 most used card types, these 2 being monsters and spells, which I don't think is fair either. Yeah, just the combination of circumstances. Yes, there's a life points maintenance cost, but in Modern Yu-Gi-Oh! That just doesn't mean enough. I don't think this card should be legal, I don't think the errata back in the day was strict enough. And especially not at 1. Either push it to 3 or ban it. I hate this card at 1, it's just so damn sacky. You can't realistically ever play around it because the chance it's actually there is very, very low. Next up is Red Reboot. I'm not a huge fan of game warping limited cards, unless there's something like Innocent, that's just like, Monster Reborn, for example. It being it one doesn't warp the game. Red Reboot dictates that trap decks are never fully safe. Even if you set Solemn Judgment, Starlight, well, okay, you can Solemn Judgment this. But even if you run something like Starlight Road to protect your back row, realistically, the only cards you can use against Red Reboot is something like Wiretap, 7 Tools of the Bandit, Solemn Judgment. Realistically, out of those, you're most likely only playing Solemn Judgment. Red Reboot is way too devastating against one type of deck, and I don't think we should alienate trap decks like that. Red Reboot going to 1 in the past already shows Konami isn't too much a fan of this card's design either. So just close it out, ban the card, get it over with, I think it's the right call. Next ban is actual problematic link card, Mega Phantom Beast Auroradon. People love to point to Hulky Fibrax and say this card's problematic, a lot of tuners have been banned because of this card, which I simply don't think is true. I think there's 3 main culprits, out of which 2 are already banned. Linkos, for generating 2 tokens for free. There was Sun Sorcerer, which at the time combined with Hulky Fibrax was just too much card advantage, which is why I don't think we ever legally had that combination in TCG. We all saw the results of that in the OCG, however. And now you have Hulky Fibrax into Mega Phantom Beast Auroradon, which is a disgusting play, getting 3 tokens for virtually free, having some other extension plays as well. Honestly, if I have to never ever see a Mega Phantom Beast Auroradon play ever again, I would be a very happy person, and I think many would agree. It's one of those things that would just please a lot of people in the community. Yes, these decks aren't exactly meta yet, but they're just annoying to face in general, and I think they're bad for the game's health. Plus that means we could easily get cards back like Lower, Bulb, Jet Synchron, and I would personally love to see that. The final ban I could see happening is Prank Kids Meow Meow Moo. This is the business side of Konami kicking in. This deck was already kind of cheap, but already printed in Eldorado. The banlist will be a bit after Eldorado, so they already cashed out. This deck is way too cheap from Konami's perspective to be meta. I don't think they want this to be meta for that reason alone. Just having a cheap meta deck is something Konami doesn't seem to be the biggest fan of, considering how many structure decks they keep cutting from the TCG. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Scott got the ban hammer. Moving on to my 4 limits that I predict. The first one is Jet Synchron. Likely in combination with Auroradon, but even without Auroradon, I think this card could just return. This was only a problem. This was a scapegoat hit because of Linkos. Linkos is now long bad, they should never ever return. And Synchrons kind of struggle to be a deck. They're like borderline rogue at best, and even that I don't agree with. I think they're not that great. Jet Synchron would at least help the deck a little bit and make him a little bit better, which opens the door to high rarity prints of Synchron related cards. There's a lot of them, and I think Konami could make a good buck out of it as well. Jet Synchron never really was that problematic of a card that you do need to discard for it. It's not 100% free, and it banishes itself after. This card never was a real problem. Ball of Desires. So this might be a bit of a hot take, but I think Ball of Desires is kind of a broken card if you realistically think about it. If you play a deck that doesn't care what's about in your actual deck, like let's say Sword Soul is a good example of this in the modern game of Yu-Gi-Oh! If you don't care about the resource that exists in your main deck, this is literally Pot of Greed. Those 10 banishes realistically don't matter. It's a free +1 in card advantage. And it allows you to block cards like Ash Blossom for free. Like, oh, they Ash this. You probably want that to happen, unless you didn't already have a combo piece in your hand, which can happen. I don't know, I think Pot of Desires is a bit too splashable. The other 2 pot cards that give you a lot of advantage, Extravagance and Prosperity, kind of have at least a few more restrictions on them. I think Desires is a bit of a ridiculous card, and I would be surprised if Konami suddenly started limiting this card. I mean, it's a cheap pot card, and they probably want you to play the other pots instead. So it's a bit of a guesstimate, like this could theoretically happen. It's probably the most unlikely hit to happen on this list, if I'm gonna be honest, but I wouldn't be surprised if it happened. Evenly Match is another one of those cards I think is disgusting. It's completely unfair towards control decks, control-based strategies. So at the end of the battle phase, if your opponent controls more cards than you do, you can just make your opponent banish cards from the field face down, so they control the same number of cards as you do. You only control Evenly, so you need to banish cards until they only control 1 card. The thing with Evenly is that they're pretty much done milking this card already. And against control decks, they need to have Solemn Judgment, otherwise they're just gonna lose the duel out of a fun trap card. It punishes certain strategies way too much in comparison, and I never am a fan of those type of cards. So I wouldn't be surprised if Konami decided to, you know, limit evenly matched so that you can combine it with other board breakers, but the chance of actually drawing evenly matched is very, very low. Kinda make it what Retribute currently is. The final limit I could see happen, which I know is kind of an unpopular opinion that I need to explain, is Royal Oppression. A lot of people hate this card, and I can understand why. First off, I think it's more Feather Vanity's Emptiness. By this Emptiness, the turn player can just use it like Upstart Goblin, boom, Vanity Emptiness dies. Royal Oppression, they actually need to put in effort to get rid of. Furthermore, they need to pay 800 life points to negate a special summon, and both players can use it. So it's not entirely free either. Those life points can add up if you're in a longer duel, for example. So post turn 1, this card can be very, very risky. And I think the problem with Mystic Mine that a lot of people mention, because spoiler alert, it's not in my limit or ban, is that there aren't enough other good generic floodgates. Therefore Mystic Mine is the only problematic card. Therefore you need to run back row removal only for Mystic Mine. If everyone started playing floodgates, everyone started playing removal, and in exchange duels would be more slow paced, I think. So to make a sensible decision from Konami to return Royal Oppression, I would at least love to see it for at least the format, see what happens. See how the game evolves. I might be burnt at the stake for this, people will probably hate me for even bringing this up as a possibility, but I think it could be interesting. Now, for the semi-limits. First off, Psyframe Gear Gamma. Why? Because it happened in the OCG, and honestly, going second with certain decks, this card is outright disgusting. So I wouldn't be surprised. This card's obviously on Konami's radar since it did get reprinted in Maximum Gold Eldorado. So it's one of those changes I could see happen. Konami, usually when they reprint meta decks, are gonna hit it in some form. That's why I think Nadir Servant is a contender for the semi-limit. Now, a lot of people are mistakenly wrong about semi-limits not doing anything. In a case like Nadir Servant, semi-limiting it means a consistency hit towards the engine, which means the engine is just less good, but you don't kill the engine at all. Even without Nadir Servant, even if Nadir Servant would be banned, Dogmatica would still be a valuable engine to at least play in certain strategies. By semi-limiting it, it takes a decent amount of power away from certain strategies that do use Dogmatica. It's something that just wouldn't at least surprise me too much. Reasoning to 2 is another change I could see happen, just remove this card from limited. Since the limitation of reasoning in the game has changed a lot, and I don't think the chance of special summoning a monster is really worth the slot in your deck for reasoning in a lot of strategies. I mean, I can't think of too many decks that realistically want to even run reasoning. The number 1 deck I could see is Eldritch, and spoiler alert, the next hit is for Eldritch. Outside of that, I don't expect too many meta-relevant decks to run reasoning. In exchange, it would promote creative deck building, and that's something I personally love, and I'm biased. Next hit, I mentioned this, I hit to Eldritch, Cursed Outland to 2. Reason for this is simple, Eldritch is now very affordable due to yet another wave of reprints. I wouldn't be surprised if in true Konami fashion this also means they're gonna hit Eldritch in some form. Not too hard, but just a little tap. Cursed Outland to 2, therefore makes sense. It's one of the better hits you can give the deck, in my opinion. But I might just do another hit like the actual Golden Lord to 2, I don't know. Now we have 6 unlimits. The first one is of course Scopium. If you know me, you know my favorite deck. 30 Archfiend to 3, Konami, it's been 7 years or something. It's about time you move on. So the issue with 30 Archfiend is that I guess Infernity's a cheater deck, but I don't think that's actually a good reason to keep this card limited. Besides, you don't even play this that much in Infernity. Like, okay, wait, I said that wrong. You wouldn't play 2 or 3 copies in Infernity, I think you would only play 1 copy anyway. We should be getting the Infernity support imports in Brothers of Legend. Therefore, unlimiting Archfiend makes sense. Then again, they didn't do it with Phantom Rage, so who knows. Skull Combat Joker to 3 just makes sense. This card being at 2 doesn't make that much of a difference anyway. It could just go up to 3, Pendulums wouldn't be the best deck, even with this. Unless your name is of course Steven Trifanovsky, then it is the best deck, naturally. No disrespect to Pentgold. Max C to 3 is something I personally want to see happen. Maybe a bit ridiculous with B-Trooper, but it would just enforce quote-unquote combo decks to start running some traps, otherwise they will have to pass on an empty board, making them lose duels. And you might actually get punished for, ignorantly running like 30 monsters, 10 spells, and no traps whatsoever in your deck. Deck building has become very terrible due to the lack of cards like Max in the format, that can just ignorantly combo and combo and combo and just put up a ton of negates. And outside of a few hand traps, they don't get punished that bad. Maxi returning would mean these kind of decks can't exist. You need some kind of plan B. You need to be able to sit on a few back row and need to actually pass your turn to your opponent, then try again in your next turn. I think it could make duels more interactive, and I would love to see Maxi return to 3. Upstart Goblin to 3 makes a lot of sense currently. It's no longer the consistency boost that it easily was in the past. This is simple. Pot of Extravagance and Pot of Prosperity both restrict you from drawing with other card effects. This means you cannot run them and Upstart in the same deck. So you actually need to make a heavy choice. Do you want to run one of those two pot cards, both are very strong if you can run them, or do you want Upstart? Plus, the 1000 life points can actually be relevant, especially with time rules. I don't think Upstart is as free as it once was, so it being at either 2 or 3 would make a lot of sense. Another card I would be surprised to see to go to 3 is Monster Reborn. Meta decks don't really play Monster Reborn at 1 anyway, and it going to 3 would just make it more consistent, which I don't think is a bad thing. It makes certain weak decks like Eternity a bit better, and that's something I always like. And the final change I would like to see happen is Emergency Teleport to 3. Now, I'm so biased when it comes to this card. I like this card a lot. I'm a huge fan of the Cosmo deck actually, which not a lot of people know. Virtual World is a deck that could just push a little bit more with this, without really giving them something true degenerate like True King of All Calamities. And in general, there would be a lot of strategies that would benefit from it that I think are interesting. Phantom Knights would benefit from this as well. Another deck I think they're trying to shove down people's throat and sell, so it would make a lot of sense. So this is my banlist prediction for the January 2022 banlist in the TCG. I definitely missed some. This list is not going to be 100% accurate. I'd say about 10 to 30% is more likely, if at all. Yeah, I wonder what kind of banlist we will get. Time will tell. Hope you guys all enjoyed the video. If you want to see more content like this, please do subscribe to the channel. It makes a difference. And I'll see you in the next one. Have a beautiful day. Shirikami signing out. Goodbye.